We continue our breaking news coverage this morning. An American Airlines plane collided with a Black Hawk helicopter last night near the Reagan National Airport in D.C. The plane went into the Potomac River. We know 64 people were on the plane, 3 were in the helicopter, and we now know there are no survivors.
Joining us now on the phone is 9 News aviation expert Greg Feith. Greg, good morning.
Is now at the helm of this entire investigation.
Hey, good morning.
Greg, in a press briefing earlier this morning, they said that skies were clear. We understand that this is incredibly preliminary, still very early in the investigation. That could take months or maybe even years to find this cause. But this morning, what are questions that you have about what could have caused this crash?
There's a number of things. Of course, the coordination with the air traffic controller and the communication between that air traffic controller and both the military pilots and the regional jet pilots. One of the big things that we're always concerned about is called situational awareness. And one way that pilots have that situational awareness, especially operating in close proximity to airports, is listening to other aircraft that are on frequency, listening to the pilots and the instructions between controllers and pilots, because that gives you proximity. That gives you an understanding of what the controller is doing with other aircraft. That's going to be a big question here. Did the RJ pilots, the regional jet pilots, were they listening, and could they hear the military pilots? Because a lot of times military is operating on a UHF frequency or ultra-high frequency. You can hear a controller talk, but you can't hear the response. So the communication part is going to be a key to a lot of the questions that are being asked right now. And then it'll be confirmed with cockpit voice recorder, flight data recorder information.
Greg, that was my question, because is the plane and the military helicopter, are they on the same frequency? Are they talking to the same air traffic control team?
A lot of times the air traffic controller is monitoring multiple frequencies. In this case, it's 2 frequencies. So you'll hear, like if you were to turn on a radio right now, you may hear an air traffic controller making a radio call, but you don't hear the response from the aircraft, from the pilots that the air traffic controller was talking to. That's because they're transmitting on a different frequency, but it is being monitored by one controller. I know a controller that works in the TRACON, and in her territory, in the western part of our state, in the southern part, she's monitoring 5 different frequencies. So it's the communication piece that's really going to answer a lot of questions, because there could have been a misidentification by the military pilots when they were asked by the controller, do you have the regional jet in sight? They responded affirmatively that they did, but there were multiple airplanes in the area of the military helicopter at the time. And we saw this before in San Diego with the PSA 727 that collided with a training airplane, a single-engine Cessna. And the crew was told about an airplane in close proximity at a particular position. The crew reported affirmative, we have it. In fact, they had sighted a similar airplane at a different place, thinking that was what the controller was calling. So misidentification could be a big deal.
Hey, Greg, for a lot of people who aren't as familiar with the CRJ 700 regional jet, exactly how big are these planes? Because we know 64 people total were on board this.
It's a live picture and what is now.
I'm sorry. I'm getting ready to do another TV spot. Sorry. So with the regional jet, the aircraft is technically advanced. We have traffic collision avoidance systems on the airplane, but they're designed to be inhibited at low altitude because they become a nuisance warning for the pilots that can cause distractions. That's going to be a big issue to see whether or not that was a problem in this particular instance, because, again, the military doesn't always use or have the same equipment that the civilian aircraft have as far as collision avoidance systems.
Greg, last question for you, because I know that you have to hop onto another call, but we know that they said there were clear skies last night, but maybe some wind, so maybe weather factored in here a little bit as well. But also talk to us about the pilot's skill in landing at this particular airport as well.
Washington National is considered what's called a special use or special airport. So it requires special qualifications above and beyond the normal qualifications for an airline pilot. It's because of the river approach. You're flying the river, so you're following the river. When you're coming in basically from the west, you're making a lot of turns, typically 3 to 4 turns before you land. You sidestep or are rerouted to a different runway after you've lined up to a primary runway. It takes special qualifications, and again, it's about situational awareness. Because of the density of traffic in the area, it's mixed traffic between military and civilian. You really have to not only listen, but you have to have a lot of good visual skills in looking at all of the low-level traffic, because I grew up in that area. You got military aircraft, National Park Service running below you at 200 feet, and so you're crossing over the top of them. And when you're not on altitude, or if they're not on altitude, it presents a problem as far as either a near miss or a mid-air collision.
All right. Greg Feith, our aviation expert, on the phone with us. Greg, thank you for taking the time this morning. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.